This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Love this hot out of the gates. Welcome, everybody, to this episode. Jespo here with Johnny Hicks behind the controls. In just a second, Dr. Jared Wesley, Dr. Alex Marland. We're talking about poisonous party politics, partisanship, loyalty, how it all works together. Of course, examples of it in play right now across the political landscape here in Canada and abroad. But in our live chat, right out of the gates, look at this. We have Boyle Street Curse checking in, says, does anyone have access to the UCP approved words for group names list? Under his eye. This is a reference to Bill 14. This is this omnibus bill as we wrapped our most recent episode after we talked to Dave Burda, revealing exclusively on Real Talk the results of his annual Best of Alberta Politics survey. And then one of the big winners, as deemed by Dave Burda's readers, the best question period performer, the best opposition MLA, Raki Pancholi, joins us to talk about the win, to talk about what's happening down at the legislature. Then Thomas Lukazik joins us. You're going, wait, what? All of those incredible interviews all in one single episode of the show? Yes, that's true. But following that, when our podcast had gone out, this omnibus bill at the legislature details the UCP's plan for restricting what political parties can be named in Alberta. A lot of people bandying this about. You remember when Peter Guthrie and Scott Sinclair were with us a couple of episodes ago, said there's rumors that the Alberta government's looking to ban the word progressive in the name of a political party. Of course, the UCP, as you know, is suing their two former MLAs, one of them, Guthrie, a former cabinet minister. They're also taking powers away from the Elections Alberta office, the chief electoral officer. They're going to the justice minister, Mickey Amory, and critics are having a field day with it, including MLA Pancholi. It's just a shame we didn't see the details before we were talking to her, but we have some astute political insight coming up on this episode, and we'll get into it. The Real Talk live chat already humming, powered by Park Power. We'll be jumping into there, and our email inbox has been absolutely jammed. This is feedback to talk@ryanjesperson.com. As you know, it's Friday, so we'll be wrapping this episode with another rowdy edition of the Flamethrowers, presented by our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Before we talk politics, I want to talk whiskey for a second. I know a lot of you need to talk whiskey whenever you talk politics. You need it to cope. But for those of you that are really true connoisseurs of whiskey made right here in Canada, in particular right here in the prairies, and you want a 7-year aged whiskey, I don't have to tell you. Check out HansonDistillery.com. You have not had an opportunity up until now to check out an Alberta-made 7-year whiskey, an Edmonton-made 7-year whiskey, because it hasn't existed until right now. This is the release, the first ever release of the Northern Eyes whiskey, 7-year aged by our friends at Hanson Distillery. It's an exciting time, obviously, for them. This distilled right here, handcrafted with 100% Alberta rye grain, aged in a single American oak barrel. Just 400 bottles exist, and they're being snapped up quickly by connoisseurs, by gift givers, by whiskey collectors across the country. You can find, if you're lucky, Northern Eyes whiskey, 7-year aged, at your favorite fine liquor store. You can find it right now at HansonDistillery.com, and I guarantee you can find a bottle when you visit our friends at Hanson at their beautiful distillery in West Edmonton. If you're anywhere near the Metro Edmonton region, 174th Street, 111th Avenue, just north of Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. This episode presented by our friends at Hanson Distillery. As we officially welcome to the show, making his debut all the way from Nova Scotia, but right here in our historic Mercer Warehouse studio, Dr. Alex Marland from Acadia University, joined by his co-author at a brand new book, No I in Team, Party Loyalty in Canadian Politics, a good and long-standing friend of the show, political scientist right here out of the University of Alberta, Dr. Jared Wesley. It's nice to see you both. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Everything in my life has been leading up to this moment.
Yeah, it sort of feels that way. I saw you looking at that bottle of whiskey.
That's what I was going to say.
As I was romancing it, I want to give you some credit. You walked right in, and I feel like maybe you're either drawn to great whiskey or you're drawn to powerful charitable causes or both.
The combination.
Because the combo is, how do you ignore that? But this Whiskey Rose bottle from Henson Distillery to benefit YWCA Edmonton's roast campaign, you immediately were like, I need to get one of those.
No, I get one for my father-in-law to bring home back to Nova Scotia, and I got to tell you, my wife will be happy that I did.
Yeah, perfect stuff. Well, it's good to see you both, and we'll talk politics. I want to talk about the book, loyalty and partisanship and floor crossings. I mean, this is more timely now than ever. I'm assuming that the two of you, alongside your co-author, did not whip this book up when Chris d'Entremont crossed the floor to help the Liberals pass this budget. This has been a long time coming.
Released 10 days before the cross, I think. So the timing was something else for sure. Yeah.
No, we started this back in 2018, 2019. We've been interviewing people. It actually got delayed because of COVID. I had an interview lined up with a pretty senior conservative, and that just had to get shelved when March 2020 hit. But you know what? We ended up interviewing 90 party leaders, floor crossers, political staff right across the country, different political parties. We ended up analyzing over 3,000 news stories to try to understand party loyalty, and we looked at all sorts of things. And I got to tell you, we learned a lot.
Well, I mean, I want to jump into an item that's sort of like top of the news cycle right now, out of the gates, because I think it does fit into party loyalty. Just a couple of episodes ago, as mentioned, Peter Guthrie, Scott Sinclair, both of them former UCP MLAs. Guthrie, a senior cabinet minister, infrastructure minister until he resigned, citing issues that he had perceived with procurement and the way that things were operating. I guess you could say trying to distance himself from that cabinet, ultimately being booted from the party. But they're here talking to us about trying to revive the progressive conservative brand. The UCP says, hell no, they're suing them for doing it. And this Alberta legislation, Bill 14, if passed, a couple of pretty significant implications, including the fact that only the Justice Minister would be able to refer a citizen referendum question to the courts. Have we ever talked about citizen referenda in Alberta as much as we are right now? Thomas Lukasik and Jeff Rath and Corb Lund and 14 recall campaigns happening with mostly, with exclusively at this point conservative MLAs. Is it surprising to you, Jared?
No, because, and this does relate to the book we'll talk about later, because partisanship is so extreme within the United Conservative Party that average Alberta citizens, many of whom, as one of the recall targets mentioned, had never voted before in his life. I don't know how he had that information, but a lot of folks who have not been tuned into politics are recognizing that they can't contact their MLAs, right? During the teacher strike, there was an edict that went out that said, you shall not have town halls. You shall not, publish on social media about these things. And so Albertans that we've talked to in our focus groups this past summer are just itching to have their voices heard. And, the lower bar now that exists is to sign a petition, right? And to make your voice heard that way. So it's not surprising to me that folks are reaching for these instruments, because the representative democracy system is being, I would say, paralyzed by hyperpartisanship within the United Conservative Party.
Well, it's a very interesting situation, because the party itself, first under Premier Jason Kenney, then under Premier Danielle Smith, has made it easier and easier for these things to happen. I guess perhaps ignoring the reality, or maybe with a bit of a blind spot that it could be weaponized against them. Now they're looking with requests to fund the efforts to facilitate what you might call direct democracy. They're now denying those efforts. It's you put something in front of the citizenry, then you pull it back. It's a tough look for a government. It's a bit of a strange look for a government.
Not the first time, though. I mean, you can go back to Eberhardt's government when they released recall legislation. The premier herself got the subject of recall, and they pulled the legislation, right? So I think that the UCP maybe just didn't look at history in BC when it was used against the Gordon Campbell government there. It's not opposition parties that get targeted by recall, it's government. And so a lot of this stuff is entirely predictable.
Do you have any sort of like initial observations around Bill 14? This will be something that, talk shows are going to be taking this on. I know that the national political shows will be talking about this this weekend. For what it's worth, Deputy Leader for the Alberta NDP Opposition, Deputy Leader Raki Pancholi says opposition will, quote, fiercely object to the legislation. I heard her in a radio interview this morning. She said this government's afraid of competition. She said they're afraid of accountability. They're afraid of Albertans. Does it strike you as that is the driving force behind this? I mean, what's your initial inclination after looking at it?
Yeah, it fits two patterns. The first is that this government, more than any other in Alberta history, is really focused on choosing who gets to vote and who gets to run. Right? We've seen it through their voter ID laws, where they've restricted access to the vote, using what I would say are draconian voter ID laws, and secondly, with just about recall, like closing down the number of they're musing. We haven't seen legislation yet, but musing about limiting the use of recall to a select series of circumstances, right? And then here we find that they're limiting what parties can call themselves, right? And so we're used to, in Alberta and Canada more generally, voters getting to pick their governments. Increasingly, we're seeing this government wanting to pick its voters and wanting to pick who can run for office. And that should be worrisome to a lot of Albertans.
Interesting take from the separatists, the Alberta Prosperity Project, lawyer Jeffrey Rath. They have court action underway. He says on the record in response to this legislation, quote, "I think they're afraid, the government's afraid we're going to win in court. We're going to get a court saying that what we're doing is perfectly fine and constitutional." He says, "We still have a court case calling Bill 14 an unintended gift to pro-independence Albertans that will remove the red tape that has stalled progress on its referendum question." Are folks in Nova Scotia watching what's brewing in Alberta right now?
If people in Nova Scotia are paying attention to Canadian politics, they're distracted by the BC Conservatives and the train wreck that's going on over there.
Jeez.
It's something else. Listen, this whole idea about what's going on that Jared is just mentioning about hyperpartisanship, I would say it goes further than this. It's not just about recall. It's actually our system overall. It doesn't matter what party is in power or even what province we're talking about. During election campaigns, candidates are shockingly unavailable to talk to voters then. They often won't go to all candidates debates. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? You have to ask yourself, why won't they engage with people when they are elected? There's excellent reasons for it. It's because they're going to get into all sorts of controversy. They're going to get into trouble. And frankly, we're in a situation where the average elected official does not matter to the government. What they are is they are party spokespeople, and they are there to vote as machines and do what is told. And that's a lot of what our research has pulled out. So we've got a bigger problem. We talk about how great our democracy is, and it is a great democracy, but there's some serious issues.
More troubling, though, is that MLAs here in Alberta, MPs, parliamentarians across the country, are willingly giving up their power to their party leadership. Yes, they're being asked to, but they're willingly doing it. Here in Alberta, the use of disclosure and closure, closure to shut down debate, that has to be voted on by MLAs, and UCP MLAs are willingly shortcutting their role in scrutinizing bills, including ones that use the notwithstanding clause. And in this case, they're also, if they pass Bill 14, gutting the ability of another legislative officer, the chief electoral officer, to act as a check on government. They're actually disempowering legislative officers that are there to help them as legislators hold the government to account.
Listen, I just want to respond to that and say, we have to ask ourselves, what is the point of a legislature? And just to be clear, this isn't just about Alberta. So I'm here from Nova Scotia. In Nova Scotia, the legislature met for a little more than a week this fall. They brought in omnibus bills, and they basically told everyone, you just have to vote. They shut everything down. And what is happening is the trend is that people in power, regardless of party, are not interested in being criticized. And the whole point of a legislature is to hold the government to account. So when the government has people in their party who are agreeing to reduce the amount of scrutiny that is happening in the legislature, they're effectively undermining democracy.
We always want to make sure that this show is accessible. We promise people that if you listen to Real Talk religiously, you're going to come across, if you choose to reveal it, as the smartest person at the Christmas party. But I think it's important sometimes to just put things in layperson's language. We hear a lot about omnibus bills. Like in layperson's language, an omnibus bill is just taking everything you want to do into one big bill and then passing it so it kind of gives you carte blanche, right? Is that like a decent layperson's?
It's cramming a whole bunch of things together, pretending that they're connected. And the way that you do this is this avoids scrutiny of any one issue. So let's say you had 7 different issues. Each one should be properly scrutinized, discussed, evaluated. Instead, what you do is you package them all together and you say, we have to do this. It's urgent. We need to ram this forward. And it essentially means that the people that we elect, who are meant to scrutinize bills and legislation that is coming forward in the legislature, instead of getting proper scrutiny, it gets rushed forward.
We're getting a shout out to you, by the way, from Matthew YEG, who's in our live chat right now. Says, big shout out to Dr. Wesley. Says, an amazing prof. I'm assuming he's a former student of yours, or maybe a current one who's looking for an A. I don't know. Says he's been beating this drum about Alberta's government for years. This party, the UCP, says they've been kind enough to prove him right more than ever this year. I want to circle back on what you're saying, Alex. Why, as John Rustad, by the way, resigns as leader of BC's Conservative Party, as if he had a choice. I mean, it was an absolute mess. With I think it was more than 20 of his MLAs. There was a mutiny. There was a coup. They were coming for his head. And I think anytime that a party leader is pointing to, well, not incorrect to point to a party's constitution as reason that he should be allowed to stay, it's pretty flimsy, and you know the writing's on the wall. But he resigns just shortly after his party called for him to do exactly that. Why do folks in Nova Scotia care particularly about what's happening with BC's Conservative Party?
Well, I'm just saying that's what's getting the media attention. Listen, out in Nova Scotia, everybody is still talking about the Chris D'Entremont floor crossing.
Well, he's your guy. I mean, not your guy personally, but a Nova Scotia MP.
Totally. And so out, and frankly, when I was in Ottawa recently, that's what everybody was talking about. And it's because it was so dramatic, right? So you have this conservative, longtime conservative. Before that, he was a progressive conservative in the Nova Scotia legislature. And what he ends up doing is being the only conservative who gets elected in Nova Scotia in this last election campaign. On budget day, the drama of budget day, where there's this big reveal, all media attention is focused on the budget. He clumsily ends up announcing that he's interested in potentially going with the Liberals. And before the Conservatives have a chance to throw him out, all of a sudden he's walking into the Liberal caucus room with Mark Carney. And so that was very dramatic because, of course, you know, the way the votes are in Ottawa and the way that, you know, the Liberals are just a couple of shorts shy of being able to make sure that everything gets through, there was national attention to this. And so that's why people are still talking about it. The treachery of changing parties really gets to the fact that we have this view that when we are voting for a party, we are voting for a leader. So therefore we expect our representative to represent us through the party and the leader. But the reality is that we need representatives who challenge the party, who challenge the leader.
Yeah, and I do agree with you, of course. At the same time, in practice, it doesn't always happen because, you know, politicians tend to be concerned about their own political survival, their own career trajectory, that sort of a thing. And challenging leadership, I mean, I guess maybe with the exception of what's happening with BC's Conservative Party, that's a decent example. Maybe what's happening, and we'll get into the UCP AGM, pretty wild stuff, obviously broadcast nationally, was Premier Smith's speech a week ago tomorrow, which I thought was interesting as well. But you don't see a lot of challenges within a party unless it's time to come for the leader's head. I know for a fact, because reliable sources have told us, that there's Conservative MPs, federal MPs right now that are lining up for leadership runs. But I guarantee not one of them is going to say a damn thing until they're absolutely certain that Pierre Poilievre's leadership or his support is threatened. And that's something that's going to play out over the next while. In January, as a matter of fact, people will be paying close attention to that. Is there anywhere in Canada, or can you think of an example where a party has had some sort of a structure or a confident enough leader or the type of process where party members, elected representatives within that party, MLAs, MPs, can challenge leadership where it tends to be fruitful or beneficial for the general population? Have you seen it?
Yeah, well, in the book, we talk about leaders that use caucus as not just a sounding board or you know, a direct communication channel out, but actually use caucus as a debate forum to actually
Who's a
bring
good example?
ideas. We heard last night at an event that Rachel Notley actually was very good at managing a caucus. Now, given there was very different power dynamics involved in that, you'll recall only about 8 of the folks in her caucus in 2015 had any kind of legislative or remotely political experience. So she actually had a lot of advantages there as a leader. But what we've heard when I interviewed some of her caucus members for the book is that she built processes in place that allowed them meaningful input on legislation. She actually created a parallel track for caucus to review legislation before it went back into cabinet committees. So I know she's not alone. We've heard of other leaders who meet with their caucus members on a regular basis and don't staff it out. But leaders that don't, like if leaders rely on their house leaders, or they rely on their whip, or they rely on their chief of staff to work with caucus, they're not going to be long in that job.
In our live chat powered by Park Power, Kerry Fox says, I've never been a voter based on party. I vote on issues and the people running. Daniel Smith, Pierre Poilievre will never get my vote, says Kerry. Both are... She says, both are repulsive and only represent the far right. Justin says, no UCP MLAs have responded to multiple emails I've sent. I know it sounds like everyone's just piling on the UCP right now. It just feels like that's where the vibe is at this morning. Says, I only ever get replies from opposition offices. Says it's disgraceful. Ms. Katie wonders, is Bill 14 retroactive? Like, would these recalls now go through the minister? I mean, if anything that would be in process, right?
I'm not a lawyer as much as my mother would like me to be, but
Sure.
Actually the minister said he's not sure what happens with existing court cases with regard to the referendum or how the courts would interpret retroactive legislation like this.
Okay, Ms. B says when MLAs are booted out of their party for representing their constituents' interests, like Sinclair. Some background for you: Scott Sinclair was a rookie MLA, but a popular one out of Lesser Slave Lake, north of Edmonton. Felt as though his constituency wasn't properly, let me say, rewarded in the budget. Said he was going to vote against the budget. Pretty remarkable stuff, and ultimately is now sitting as an independent. So Ms. B says, Sinclair, that's the situation there. You know that representative democracy is paralyzed by partisanship. Interesting way to put it.
Yeah, and I think the problem here is at what point is somebody who's elected standing up for themselves? Are they fueled by ego? Are they frustrated because they're left out of cabinet? I mean, there's so many different things that you can look at and try to understand what is somebody's motivation. And so some of the things that we were doing is we were saying, okay, listen, when we looked at all these different politicians, we studied 1980 to 2021 right across the country. And we were trying to figure out, when people leave their party because they're so frustrated, when they cross the floor to another party, are they motivated by the fact that there's something going on, they're attracted to the spoils of office? Or maybe there's something like they might be interested in, there's some policy issue going on. But the number one thing that we normally found is tension with the leader or attraction to another leader. It's really about leadership dynamics for these people.
RS says this is an area where Donald Trump has no doubt had an effect on politics. His threats of basically, toward any party dissenters is very effective at minimizing criticism. Probably the most recent or prominent example of that would be Marjorie Taylor Greene. But Johnny, producer of this show, had put together a mashup. It's about 3 minutes of Trump losing the right from the podcast standpoint, the most prominent political and online commentators. Bit of a different ballgame, but not the same thing. I mean, if you look at political commentary these days, if you look at independent media, we might as well expand our conversation about partisanship beyond just elected representatives.
I think the biggest parallel there, though, Ryan, is populists like Trump and Danielle Smith formed pretty solid alliances with libertarians who wanted small government and lots of checks on government when they were in opposition, right? Because they all wanted to throw the same establishment elites out. But now that those populists have gained power, the libertarians are becoming very disillusioned with how much they're exercising that state power and removing checks and balances. So Marjorie Taylor Greene's upset about it, Ted Cruz is upset about it, but Peter Guthrie and Scott Sinclair are upset about it here. And I think if there is some internal party tension within these populist right-wing governments, it's going to come from the libertarian wing.
Well, we're seeing it right now. I mean, I don't know if you want to say, I don't know if you can draw a direct line to libertarian and separatist in Alberta. I would probably disagree with that, although I would say the Venn diagram probably has some
anti-establishment.
Some anti-establishment, right? And, I mean, were you paying attention to the UCPA, Jim, all the way from Nova Scotia? I mean, it was wild to see what happened. I mean, it was a room of about 4,000 people, really solid turnout. But the room I think it's fair to say, I bet the room would say it was like anti-Canada. And this was literally 24 hours after the Prime Minister in Calgary had signed an MOU with the Premier, with Alberta's Premier, on a new pipeline deal. I mean, the parallel stories are wild.
Yeah, listen, I just got to say that out in Atlantic Canada and other parts out east, everybody's going, what on earth is going on in Alberta? They're very confused and don't understand why people would be so frustrated with Canada because, well, they're, if anything, they're very patriotic in this moment because of what's happening in the States.
The critics of the party are saying, well, the UCP is now a separatist party. Premier's going to be sitting in the chair you're sitting in coming up on Tuesday, December 9th, and I'll ask her about this. I guarantee she's going to say the UCP is not a separatist party, but the optics of what happened at that AGM are difficult to ignore. And then now you've got prominent separatists. I've referenced Jeff Rath. He's never had as much attention on this show as this week, but he's calling for the Premier to resign. I mean, it's like everything's coming home to roost right now. How much of a problem is this for the Premier?
I like Shannon Phillips had a great analogy. She said for years, even starting with Jason Kenney, the UCP has been riding two horses at once, right? They've been riding the autonomist horse, but they've also been flirting with separatists. And all roads between now and the next general election, with perhaps a sovereignty referendum or a stay in Canada referendum in between, are leading towards them having to make a choice. Now, whether that means that they have a referendum and the government has to step out and say we're firmly in favor of staying in Canada, or whether there's a vote in the legislature, which I think is even more perilous for that party, it's going to force MLAs on an individual basis to make a choice. Do we favor separatism or do we favor staying in Canada? And that's a choice that I know a lot of MLAs, particularly in rural areas, don't want to have to make.
It's not the first time that a party has party's ridden two horses, right? I mean, there's examples across the country and across the political spectrum too, right? Like a lot of times parties need to serve multiple masters, and it can be a difficult ride, to use the horse analogy, to sustain for longer than a while. Are there examples? I mean, as you guys are doing your research over decades of political history in Canada, of a party that's been able to thread that needle, to have a healthy culture, to reach a broad base, to be that so-called big tent party that brings in different, you might say, special interest groups and actually sustain it?
So I'm really interested in what's happening now with some of the progressive conservative parties outside of the Western area, which is really saying, all of a sudden now you have progressive conservatives saying we need to put money into healthcare. And that is really connecting with people, and that's resonating with them. Or even if you look at the federal conservatives saying we need to be able to reach out to people who are in unions. Coalitions and different aspects of political parties evolve over time. And so, yeah, there's lots of examples. Listen, Ryan, I want to turn it back to something Jared was saying earlier and what you were saying, which was about these dynamics of leaders connecting with elected representatives. And the thing that wasn't coming up was the role of political staff. I can't impress upon listeners how much has transformed in the way that we are governed because of the presence of political staff, the amount of power that political staff have. All you have to do is talk to an elected official, and they talk about how much power. They often deride them as 20-year-olds, which I don't think is fair, but they point out that they don't have the same life experiences they do. They're brandishing all this authority. You were asking about people who connect. Brian Mulroney stands out right up there on a pedestal about the best person who's ever communicated with members of his caucus, phoning them at all times, sending flowers when people were ill, all these sorts of things. To me, Justin Trudeau in many ways was the absolute worst. Everything that I've heard about him was very much, I at most have 5 minutes for you. You have to go through an army of staff to even be able to get to me. And so the real successful leaders are the ones who are constantly connecting with their caucus. And from what I understand, Danielle Smith does that fairly well. We mentioned that in the book.
The book is No I in Team, Party Loyalty in Canadian Politics. You can check it out at partyloyalty.ca. We're hanging out with Dr. Alex Marland, Dr. Jared Wesley, co-authors of this book. How do you pronounce the name of your other co-author? Is it Mireille?
Mireille Lalancette.
Mireille Lalancette. My français is seulement peu. So appreciate that. I would promote your event tonight, but it's sold out, so I don't know if there's any point. Congratulations on that. I want to talk about the premise of floor crossing. I want to talk about how nasty it gets when it happens. I want to talk about when partisanship can be positive, and I want to talk about when it can be poisonous. More in just a second. Again, partyloyalty.ca for more on the book. We're talking a lot about our live chat. You know that's powered by our friends at Park Power. They're your friendly local utilities provider with internet, electricity, and natural gas across the province of Alberta. Johnny just switched over to Park Power Internet. John, you said it's just as fast.
I sure did.
Just as fast?
Just as fast at almost half the price, saving about $56 a month from my previous provider. So.
That is real numbers. That is real savings. That's just one guy. That's just his internet. Imagine if you bundle all three. Check out parkpower.ca/realtalk for exclusive promo codes that could save you up to $150 off your first bill when you bundle internet, electricity, and natural gas. I know everybody's kind of feeling philanthropic. You're feeling generous this time of year. One of the many reasons we're very proud to partner with Park Power is they donate a portion of their proceeds to nonprofits across the province. And when you sign up, when you bring your business to Park Power, from a drop-down menu, you choose which charity you want to benefit. How cool is that? That's parkpower.ca/realtalk. Speaking of philanthropy, our friends at North Road Investment Council know that this is the month. December's the month that oftentimes focuses our attention on the importance of giving, not just within your family, but gifts to the charities, the causes that are important to you. If that's right up your alley right now, most donors, you should know, still aren't taking advantage of, instead of giving cash, donating appreciated investments, things like stocks or ETFs or mutual funds that have grown in value. In many cases, the capital gains tax on those appreciated securities is totally exempt when they're directly donated. So that means more of your money is going to the charity. Less of it's going to CRA. And the benefits don't stop there. There's generous federal and provincial tax credits, strong corporate tax deductions. If I've caught your attention, and I bet I have, you can check out northroadic.com to connect with Marshall and Carrie and the team. Learn more about intelligent giving strategies at North Road Investment Council. I'm thrilled to be returning as host of Chamber Ball. That's coming up this January. You can get your tickets today at edmontonchamber.com. It is guaranteed to sell out as we pack Hall D for the black tie business event of the year in the Metro Edmonton region. Chamber Ball 2026 goes January 24th, and it will be a night you will never forget. 5-course dining, of course, premium bar service, live entertainment. I mean, hell, guys, I'm hosting it, but also a chance to celebrate outstanding community achievements and be part of a tradition that is the Edmonton Chamber that has defined business excellence since 1889. The Edmonton Chamber is older than Alberta. Wrap your mind around that. Learn more about the benefits of membership at edmontonchamber.com. And when I'm getting geared up to host Chamber Ball or any of the other events through the year, you know where I'm going. I'm going to The Helm in downtown Edmonton. A phenomenal 3-story retail experience. You can find them online too at thehelmclothing.com. If you have that man in your life that's difficult to buy for but appreciates custom or luxury casual wear, check out The Helm's gift guide. The 2025 gift guide has everything you need, carefully selected. Their top winner picks for every personality and style. Johnny's showing you right now recent shots from in their store. I love working with their team, led by Chad. I basically walk in, I say, here's the event. Can you put an outfit together for me? And they've never failed me. If you're shopping for yourself or someone you love online at thehelmclothing.com, the promo code REALTALK, all one word, will knock 10% off your entire order. Promo code REALTALK, 10% off at thehelmclothing.com. Hanging out with Dr. Jared Wesley, Dr. Alex Marland from Universities of Alberta and Acadia, respectively, co-authors of No I in Team, Party Loyalty in Canadian Politics. The story around the Chris D'Entremont floor crossing, and I mean, there's many angles to it. A lot of people pointing out it feels like a bit of a weird fit for the Liberals. Maybe we can dig into that if you want. You're not so convinced. I can tell by your body language. A lot of people are saying, listen, he's a part of the pro-life caucus with the Conservatives, and now he's all of a sudden moving over to Mark Carney's Liberals. Makes no sense. I think that oversimplifies, by the way, the pro-life, pro-choice kind of debate. I bet you there's some pro-life Liberals, but I digress. The most remarkable part about it, I thought, was the rumors that Andrew Scheer and Grant Workington had busted into D'Entremont's office as Politico's Mickey Jurek had reported that he was crossing the floor, and then it got really, really nasty. Now, I have it on a good source that Scheer and D'Entremont had negotiated a gentleman's agreement that would see D'Entremont on his way out not take swipes at the leader, not take shots at the party, cross the floor, keep it quiet, and move on. As a few days passed and Mr. Scheer referred to Mr. D'Entremont in a national media interview as a snake, that's when the tables turned, says this very reliable source, and that's when things got even nastier. Floor crossing is a very emotional thing a lot of times. I think back in Alberta about 13 years ago when Danielle Smith and many of her MLAs, Wild Rose at the time, crossed the floor to sit with then Premier Jim Prentice. There are many other examples. Sandra Jansen is an interesting one for conservative circles in Alberta, and she wasn't the only one either. Are you guys inherently against floor crossing? I mean, how do you feel about it as a political mechanism or as an option for an elected official?
Great question. And the first thing I would say is it's really important that parliamentarians be allowed to leave their party and be allowed to go to another party. And here's why. If you did not have that mechanism available to you, party leaders would be that much stronger and that much more powerful. So you have to have some way to have this threat of saying, don't treat me this way, don't treat people this way. You need to be able to rein in the way you're behaving. Now, on the other hand, here's what we think should happen. We think that there should be rules in the legislature that say you cannot cross the floor directly from one party to another without a pause. You should have to sit as an independent for a period of time, maybe 30 days. During that time, the expectation would be people would be talking about this. People would be exploring things. You would have to consult with your constituents. There would be an ability for the public to weigh in before you cross over. And what that would do is that would reduce the hyper-partisanship, the accusations of being a snake and all this sort of thing, but it would also reduce the possibility of saying, hey, here's a little cabinet lure. Why don't you come on over, right over into cabinet? Because it would mean that there would be a pause between them. So, and all the studies, all the examples we looked at, this was usually the best outcome for people when they sat as an independent for a period of time, thought about it, consulted their constituents, and then joined another party. How
do you feel about it?
Yeah. We label it in the book. We call it the two-step, and that was actually a quote from Keith Martin, who's a famous floor crosser from BC, right? Yeah, a joke. Being a member of a co-author group is like being a member of a team, and we have to come to consensus on these recommendations. I got to tell you, the more we're on this tour and talking about it, I'm being sold more and more on this idea. I was initially kind of reluctant to say that we should have a ban on floor crossing directly for the reasons that Alex just said, that it actually removes the ability of an MLA or an MP to exert pressure on their political party. But I think it does make sense. And the folks that we interviewed said, the ones that did cross directly, a lot of them said, I wish I would have taken time to talk to my constituents about it. And definitely that fits every single one of the Wild Rose floor crossers from 2014. That stuff that many of them that we interviewed for the book, they said, we wish we would have gone back and actually endorsed this at the grassroots level the way that Jason Kenney did eventually with the UCP, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The three of you, along with your co-author, wrote a really fascinating piece. People can check it out at thewalrus.ca. The Walrus Canada's Conversation. The headline, Political Defectors Face Mistrust, Hostility, Sexism, and Worse. Why do they do it? And it's a great article. We'll link to it in the show notes. You, out of the gates, bring up the story of Sandra Jansen, former broadcaster, and I thought a very effective politician, but certainly paid the price. And it was a personal price. There was like intimidation and horrific language hurled her way and threats that she was quite candid to speak about until she ultimately stepped out of the limelight on it. But are there like certain groups? Is there evidence that certain groups, whether it's women or visible minorities or newcomers or what have you, will face harsher backlash in the context of partisanship and loyalty? I mean, what have you found in your research?
Women in particular, and Sandra features pretty prominently in one of the chapters in our book. You have to remember, Sandra Jansen was a lifelong progressive conservative. She worked on Joe Clark campaigns. She's been around that party for a very, very long time, and started facing a lot of pressure at party events at an AGM, right? And when she was running for the leadership of the party, she was nudged out. She famously, after she'd crossed the floor, read out in the legislature some of the caustic, toxic messages that she received from former party supporters. There are so few women in politics in general. These kinds of stories make it less likely that women will put their name forward to run, and also more likely that they'll cut their careers short. And when we talked to her, frankly, about why she left politics, it was because of the impact on her family. And who can blame her? And that's the other side, the dark side of partisanship I don't think we talk enough about.
But this also proves the point, right? That if she had not gone directly from the PCs over to the NDP, if she had spent a month talking to her constituents, explaining her reasons, listening to what they had to say, and then eventually be able to frame it and say, listen, I've talked to my constituents, they think it's a good move, it would have been a different reaction.
I think there would have been a bit of a cooling off period. Sandra might be a bit of an outlier in terms of the case because she faced it for a very long time.
Well, plus she had been running for the leadership.
Yeah. Erica in our live chat says, I can't stand floor crossers. They're putting party politics ahead of the wishes of their constituents who voted them in. It is the ultimate betrayal of public trust. Is it?
Well, it depends on your point of view. I mean, I think there is some betrayal because what it's doing is it's very elitist, right? So when people get elected, they're supposed to represent their constituents. And the problem with crossing directly from one party to another is you have to keep it secret. If you go out and you start talking about it, the way Chris D'Entremont did very, very briefly, you will get tossed out of your party. And then not only that, but the other party will probably say, whoa, we don't want you here. So you have to keep it secret. You can't tell anybody. And so that's not very democratic at all.
I love this comment here from Game Time Y, who says, yeah, but then the party changes. You know, you got to be allowed and encouraged to stand on principles. Parties can change dramatically in their overall. So, I can think of examples across the country right now where the identity or the feel or the brand or even the base of a party can dramatically evolve with a new leader or with an election win or an election loss, or there's many contributing factors, and all of a sudden you'll have MLAs, MPs, even staffers going, this doesn't even resemble what I was a part of 6 months ago.
Yeah, and as Alex said, a leading cause of party defection, why people leave, is because they don't agree with the leader, and often a leadership change can spark that. The number of people that we talked to that said, well, I didn't leave my party left me, right? And that comes after a merger, or it comes after a change in leadership. And again, we in the book we're clear, we want to leave the opportunity for parliamentarians to make that choice. In the book we talk about how we assume that people either must wear a party hat when they're a representative, or they must represent their constituents, right? But in reality, they need to do both, and they need to do both at the same time and effectively. And some of the party leaders that we interviewed talked a lot about how partisanship and party apparatus can help them serve their constituents better in some instances. So it's important, I think, that we think of these as needing to be in balance. People need to be able to represent their constituents as a delegate of them. They need to be able to represent the party that they ran for, and they also need to be able to use their own personal judgment, right? And through the book, we're trying to educate, budding politicians and even ones that are in office right now. You can wear all three hats, and we expect you to. I'm
not comparing floor crossings to resignations. They're very different. We can reference Matt Generou's resignation, prominent Alberta Conservative MP, longtime MP, MLA before that. He'll be resigning this spring from the Conservatives. Of course, Stephen Guilbeault, got to talk about him. Longtime broadcaster Don Newman has an interesting piece just published on the 1st of December, The Leftward Tilt of Carney's Casualty Count. You can check it out at policymagazine.ca. This isn't just limited. It's not just a conservative conversation, right? I mean, as you're paying attention to what's happening with this minority government right now and Mark Carney, you can get a deal done with Alberta, but it also comes as a cost. It's been fascinating to see him expend at least a little bit of political capital, you have to assume, in BC and maybe Quebec, and obviously with former Minister Guilbeault himself.
Yeah, so I've been saying to people that when all of this controversy was going on about Conservative MPs, who, by the way, I found it interesting. I was talking with a Conservative MP in Ottawa, and he was saying that now you absolutely, as a Conservative, you can't talk with people in other parties, because if you're seen with anybody, the media will take it in a different direction. So it's actually caused partisanship to get tighter in many ways. But what I've been saying is, listen, all sorts of people, Ottawa media in particular, are really focused on which Conservatives might cross the floor or leave their party. And what I've been saying is it's actually also the Liberals we need to look at, specifically the Trudeau-era Liberals. The Liberals who were elected in 2015, 2019, 2021, who were very much promoting a progressive agenda, and now all of a sudden have gone through a whiplash, are being taken to the political right, championing things that surely they would have absolutely been against when they first got elected. It must be really tough to be a Trudeau Liberal MP right now under the Carney government.
Doctors Alex Marland, Jared Wesley, our guests in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. You can check out partyloyalty.ca for more on their book. That's where you can buy it too. No I in team party loyalty in Canadian politics. In our live chat, Meta Modern says, if you want to do a floor crossing, there should be a by-election by default, maybe one automatically triggered. Super Chat Ken, who, by the way, kicks in $5 into our YouTube Super Chat. Typically, that's a way for audience members to buy a guest a beer. You nice. Saw the cold beers in the beer fridge. You can do that. But Ken also says that his $5 to you today in particular. I don't know, Alex. I don't know what's going on here. Well, someone will step up and buy you one too, I'm sure. But Ken says a black liquid with cow juice for Dr. Wesley, he says, because the UCP removed the word coffee and milk from use. He says for providing excellent info on Blue Sky. He follows you on Blue Sky. So there you go. But others, Lauren says, like marriages that change and end in divorce, so do politics. Nia says, and thanks Nia for your YouTube channel membership, says, what if you only win by a very small margin? Floor crossing actually reflects the constituents when the party changes or fails to represent the public. Kind of an interesting point there. Ken K says the main problem is that elected representatives do not represent the people who elected them anymore at all. They're just pawns of the party leader. It's all top down and not bottom-up politics. I mean, how do we talk about partisanship without that? I mean,
but I mean, listen, this is the big problem we have in Canadian politics, Alberta politics, and elsewhere, is you cross the floor and all of a sudden, do you think you have a lot of agency? No. you're still an elected official in a political party that is basically telling you how to vote and telling you what to say. The bigger problem that we have is, what is it about our system that we can't have people freely speak their minds, freely come out and say things that represent their constituents, challenge their leaders, without us treating them as some sort of horrible maverick who's a complete traitor? So we need to ask ourselves, I understand why parties do it. I absolutely get it. I get it. You can't have some rogue agent going out there shooting off their mouth and the premier or whatever leader is trying to turn the party in another direction, or they have something they want to announce. I get it. But at the same time, we need to find some balance where people can respectfully disagree without being treated all the time as some sort of maverick who should be kicked out of the party.
Are there examples, like, I mean, I can think of, maybe not, this is not a floor crossing example. This is a bit of a deep pull, but Brent Rathgaber was a popular conservative MP under Stephen Harper. And then obviously things unfolded there, and he sat as an independent, ran as an independent, and got smoked by his former staffer, Michael Cooper, who remains the MP in St. Albert. It's interesting when someone leaves a party, in particular sitting as independents. Jody Wilson-Raybould, an interesting example as well. There are across Canada. But when you take a look at the period that the three of you studied in your book, over about 40 years approximately, what percentage of defectors, whether they sat as independents or crossed the floor, were reelected as compared to like incumbents who stayed? Or has that changed over time? Were there any trends that you noticed?
Well, it's stayed pretty similar. You don't have great prospects at all. In fact, most of the people that defect from political parties just simply don't re-up. They don't run again, right? So they resign rather than recontest it.
They cross the floor, ride out that term, and then that's it.
Yeah. Well, especially folks that sit as independents. They kind of see the writing on the wall. They look at the prospects of running an election without a party apparatus. It becomes very, very challenging, and a lot of them just simply don't run again. But we've seen an uptick, and Alex, you know some of these folks. You met with them, you interviewed them, you have them into your classes and on campus. Some successful independents that actually create a career out of being an independent. They run and they win.
Yeah, this is actually kind of neat. So there's an independent who got elected in the last Ontario election, second time in a row, somehow managed to win as an independent despite Doug Ford's big blue machine rolling right across. She got the second highest number of votes. Bobby Ann Brady is her name. Look her up. She is a real firecracker. I can see why her constituents vote for her. Out in Nova Scotia, there's one, Elizabeth Smith McCrossin, who I just had in class the other day. She's been elected twice as an independent. Over in Newfoundland, there's two who have been elected multiple times. One is now just recently been appointed to the speaker. I think the commonality here is, you have constituents realizing that there are independents who can be amazing, amazing representatives. The common thing here is these independents are incentivized to connect with their constituents, to answer every phone call, every email. And yet, when you are part of a party, you can avoid doing that.
Is this a new conversation? Like, are we just paying more attention to it now? Like, has politics, has partisanship, or the way that parties function, or the way that leaders rule? They would prefer, I'm sure, that I say the way that leaders lead. But let's call a spade a spade. Has it changed?
Yeah. What's new? And we lead off with this in the book. We used to talk about party discipline in the sense that all of the votes in the legislature were whipped. You voted with the party line. Now, with the advent of social media and all the risks that we've talked about that come with having, the potential for one MP or one MLA to shoot from the hip and completely derail your party's message, parties have really clamped down. It's no longer just, regulating behavior in the legislature. It's regulating everything they say or do. And that's what's new.
Things become easier to understand when you look at party politics as brands. So from my perspective, if you say, listen, how would a brand work if you suddenly had somebody going off and saying things that were totally different, right? So you have to make sure that everybody is repeating the same message over and over and over again. And when you think about political parties as brands, particularly brands that are tied around the leader's brand, you start realizing why it is that elected officials now start mimicking the leader.
Interesting comment here as well in our chat. People are talking, it's sort of like what they'd like to see, like matriarch here in our chat, what they'd like to see from politics. Can we not just abolish party politics as matriarch? I get the theory. In practice, I don't know, but says just vote for the person that best matches your values. It's sickening how politicians vote for the party line, not what's good for their constituents. She says a good example is in Alberta right now. I get the idea, but that's just not in practice feasible. It's not how it works, is it?
Well, it works in the territories that way.
Yeah?
Right?
Take us into
territorial elections operate without political parties in the Northwest Territories and Nunavut. And I was thinking the same thing. Did they ban them? You can't actually, under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms at the provincial and federal levels, you cannot ban political parties because it's part of our freedom of association. And so there's just been political cultures in those two territories that have evolved such that we interviewed somebody for the book, it didn't make its way in, but one person was actually chased out of town when they found out they were secretly organizing for one of the federal political parties. They were chased out of town on snowmobile, right? So some places parties are just so despised. But it happened here. I would argue that we saw signs of it here in Edmonton and Calgary, where folks were for the first time able to run under political party banners, and the results were mixed at best. Here in Edmonton, the party disbanded even before we got to the election day, because they were finding at the doorstep Edmontonians were saying, we don't want somebody to represent a party, we want you to represent our ward. And so there is some animosity.
Yeah, the answer, Ryan, is that political parties are needed in large legislatures. They're needed to be able to organize things. And the best example I would provide to you is the Senate. There's 105 senators, and there was a clear move under Justin Trudeau to make it so that people were sort of independent senators, and they still organize into groups anyway on their own. And so you can do this in small legislatures that exist in Nunavut and the Northwest Territories. I would argue you could probably do it in PEI, probably Newfoundland and Labrador, but good luck doing it in any of the bigger provinces, let alone in Ottawa.
What's one takeaway that you hope? I mean, obviously, people can check out the book and get into it, guys. It's really well written. It's really well done, and it's a real deep dive. Again, partyloyalty.ca. The book, No I in Team, Party Loyalty in Canadian Politics. But what's one takeaway that you hope that a Canadian, regardless of whether they're reading this in Campbell River or out in beautiful Nova Scotia, that they take away from this in the sense of their perception or their participation in politics?
So my wish would be that anybody who's aspiring to office, who's thinking of running, or for that matter, who's already elected, that they would turn to this book and the lessons that are in it. And so 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if somebody you know is thinking of running for party politics, tell them to go to the library, check out this book from the library, have a look at it, and understand your options, because you can work as a very constructive representative. You do not have to be beholden to party leaders. You can push back. Here's the trick that most people don't seem to understand. You will get picked off if you are an individual. If you go out and start shooting off your mouth, they are going to easily say, you've got to stop this. But if you're part of a group, if you are part of a cohort within a small subgroup within caucus, now you collectively are a problem for the leadership. So what you need to do is assemble and work with others in your party to push back against the leader.
You?
I would say, it's always a pleasure to write with Alex. It's our fourth book, I think, that we've written together.
Haven't you guys been writing together like 15 years or something?
Yeah, I think we started way back in 2011. Yeah,
wild.
Yeah. But what I like about this book is that, I was just in charge of the stats, but Alex was in charge of the stories. And I think that, average Canadians who are just got an interest in politics would love to pick up this book and just read the stories.
Yeah. Was there one interview that blew your mind? I mean, more than, what'd you say, 90 interviews? You spoke to 90?
Yeah.
Was there one that really stuck with you?
Actually, it's not so much that any one interview. It's that sometimes you meet people and they're really interesting. Like, the politicians are mostly great people. I love them. And I mentioned the example of Bobby Ann Brady, right? This independent MPP in Ontario. We did this interview. In fact, when I did the interview, it was by Zoom. She was sick that day. It was a dark screen, so I wasn't able to see her. But we connected so well that I ended up interviewing her again, ended up talking with her, ended up getting her to come out for an event. When she came to the event, everybody in the room was silent, listening to what she had to say. Then I ended up going to her electoral district in rural Ontario in February. During the election campaign, I was at her campaign launch. The room was electric. People loved her. Yeah. It was really cool.
That is very cool. This is interesting comment as well from RS, who says another issue is how we're governed by unelected advisors. You guys kind of touched on this, like the power of the back rooms, right? Yeah. The unelected advisors. RS says they've replaced the power that our elected representatives once had. Kind of interesting. Cordetti Motorsports, by the way, as well. How interesting is this? Says, I tried starting a political party in the Northwest Territories. Says it did not get off the ground due to a team that was inactive and a government that intimidated the public sector from people joining.
Was there a snowmobile involved?
I don't know. Maybe it's Cornet. Well, I think Cornetti Motorsports is a real business, and I think they probably do sell snowmobiles. I don't know. I don't know for a fact, but wouldn't that be interesting? I wouldn't be surprised. This audience will blow your mind. It'll blow your mind. Doctors Alex Marland and Jared Wesley, always love having you on the show. Thanks. Hell of a debut, by the way. And Jared, it's always great to see you. Congratulations on the book. I know that you guys have been working on this and excited about this for a long time. PartyLoyalty.ca is where you can check it out, and I'd love to tell you about their event tonight, but unfortunately you guys are just so popular that there are no tickets left, no tickets available. Enjoy your time in the capital city.
Hey, I always love it here.
Enjoy your visit to
Long-time
Hanson
Edmonton
Distillery.
Oilers fan, too.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, God, yes.
On the heels of a 9-4 win over Seattle.
Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah, it sure does. Thanks for doing this, guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. That's Doctors Alex Marland, Jared Wesley, in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. You know, we're talking a lot about philanthropy and this time of year in the spirit of giving, and we want to make sure that the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation is on your radar. If you missed it a week ago, exactly, we had a really, really powerful conversation with Dr. Louis Francis Cuddy and a group of individuals. You see him there on the screen right now, Taylor Soroka, Glenda Sartori, and Lindsay Robertson. Taylor's the co-founder with her dad of Jasper Place Wellness Center. Glenda lost her son, Steve, just about a year ago. And Lindsay Robertson is doing an amazing job at the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation talking about this bridge healing program that's integrating housing into healthcare. It's a hugely important missing piece right now of addressing chronic homelessness, mental health challenges, addiction in the Metro Edmonton region. The Royal Alex is celebrating 125 years this year, and they're marking it with a partnership that is bridge healing. Fascinating stuff. The evidence is that it's working, and we encourage you to check them out. If you're making a contribution this Christmas, or maybe even doing your estate planning, maybe you want to honor in someone's memory the Royal Alexandra, you can check out royalalex.org/bridge healing. Our friends at Solar by Kuby reminding you that just because winter is here, I mean, we're getting dumped on snow this morning, it doesn't mean that solar panels stop working. As a matter of fact, despite what many people may believe, solar panels are actually performing better in cold weather these days. It's an improvement, one of the many improvements in solar technology. Nobody knows the tech of solar better than the electricians and engineers that have built this company through its first 10 years. You can get a free solar quote today. Learn more about going green and keeping more money in your pocket by visiting kuby.ca. That's KUBY.ca. Looking to gift something unique, something special, something life-changing for that impossible-to-buy person in your life? What about a consultation at California Closets? Take your spouse, your partner, your best friend out for lunch, and then swing on by, chat with a California Closets designer. Design that dream walk-in closet, or maybe your dream garage. They do custom garages that'll blow your mind. Maybe dad or grandpa, maybe somebody deserves something they're not expecting this holiday season. This is where you start. That free consultation today at californiaclosets.ca starts a conversation on budget. They can work at all different levels. And of course, you buy with the confidence that it's a made-in-Canada company, a manufactured-in-Alberta installation, and it's guaranteed for life. If you're going to be hosting this holiday season and you're hoping to spend more time fellowshipping and less time working in the kitchen, consider Friesen Brothers. For 70 years, they've been bringing families together with great food. They've got a specially priced treat every day with their 12 days of Christmas through the month of December. And of course, at cateringbyfriesen.com, you can order your classic Christmas dinner box. They have many different options, including vegan Christmas dinner boxes. This is a wonderful way to gather your loved ones, your Christmas dinner ready. You pop it in, you warm it up, and you serve it. You can easily feed with a Christmas dinner box 4 people for just $99 plus GST. They're available to order right now all the way through till January 7th. Regardless of what your holiday tradition is, Friesen Brothers is a fit. You can place your order today for that Christmas dinner box at cateringbyfriesen.com. Pretty interesting stuff from Jared Wesley and Alex Marland on this episode of the show. And, Johnny, I think a nice performance by our Edmonton Oilers for Dr. Marland. Visiting from Nova Scotia, big Oilers fan, a walloping of the Seattle Kraken just a few hours ago. As a matter of fact, 9-4, the final score, which a lot of people were excited about. I see Dwayne chiming in. This was like the day after one of the biggest stand-up comedians of all time, Dave Chappelle, had touched down at Rogers Place in Edmonton, his first appearance in Edmonton, and sounds like it's probably going to be his last as well. No. Dwayne says, I heard, what makes you think he's fucking coming back to Edmonton?
He said he's coming back in 8 months on stage.
I heard that Dave Chappelle got heckled at the show. Did any of you see him? What's interesting here, we're hearing a lot of reports that the sound quality sucked, that it was really hot in the rink, and that there were a ton of hecklers here. But what makes it particularly interesting, Johnny, is that this is one of those shows, and this is a trend with live events these days, where nobody had their phones. Their phones were all in these locked plastic bags, so we have no video evidence of what went down at the Chappelle show. I'm just hearing from people that were there. What have you been hearing?
I heard, I think it was a perfect storm. You know what I mean? You got a work night, you got, phone deprived people. It's weird. People don't know how addicted they are to their phones till you don't have it in your hand for 3 hours. It is pretty bad. I say it's worse than alcohol, nicotine, a ton of other things. I heard there were some sound issues, not with the opening acts, but something happened when Dave came on. So maybe it was specifically his mic, or maybe it's just his style is kind of to hold it down. He smokes. He bangs it on his leg, which for a sound guy is like, oh my God. So you gotta constantly keep your hand on the fader. Also the content of his work. I know, one of the people who works here in the building was telling us, it kind of got unruly when he starts talking about certain things that people don't agree with. So I think it was just a bunch of things together. And here's the other thing. I think he will be back because this just happens. It happens to Dave Chappelle, and it happens to the guy who's going up on stage for his first comedy show ever with 40 people sitting in a dive bar. Sometimes comedians just don't hit, right? Like the Calgary show, I heard similar things. Like the start was really great for Dave. There again was a few hecklers, a few people who walked out, but a much better show than here in Edmonton. But it just happens sometimes. Like the vibe doesn't work. And one more thing, and this was a comedian I saw on our friend Ryder and Lisa's podcast who said this one time, and I just agree with him so much. Dude, arena comedy for me is not it.
I totally agree.
Comedy was born in dive bars, and then it got bigger, and the biggest it should be is like Showtime at the Apollo, like 400 or 500 people.
Yeah.
When you get 10,000 or more people in a room, and here's the thing, the opening acts for Dave Chappelle, they're all quick hitters. They come out. That's what you do as a comedian. You ask a question, then you misdirect or answer it yourself, and then you deliver a punchline.
Yeah.
Dave has changed his style. He used to be like that. Now he's telling 10, 12, 15-minute stories that kind of take you on a ride. They're emotional. They have opinions in them. And then at the end, he slings you with a really good one, right? So to get people, again, who, are a little hot, deprived of their phone, alcohol's involved, it's a work night. They probably were at work before. They're a little tired. And then you tell them all, after sitting there for 2 or 3 hours, the long lineups, hey, be quiet while I tell you this 12-minute joke about a falcon I was carrying on my arm.
Sure.
People get a little unruly. And then if they can't hear, I would totally agree that I would be a little upset as well. The last thing I'll say is that the heckler is part of comedy. A lot of people who follow Dave Chappelle right now, look, I was the biggest Dave Chappelle fan ever. Half-Baked is one of my top 10 favorite,
great movie,
funniest movies of all time. Now when I watch Dave Chappelle, and aside from all the punching down trans stuff, let's leave that out. I just don't find it as funny as I used to. And I still support him. I watch every single episode, every single special that comes out on Netflix.
He's still selling out arenas, right?
Of course. I just don't laugh as much as I used to. Am I wrong for having an opinion and being subjective and not really, it's just my taste. It's just how it hits me, right? Yeah. But I will say that the heckler is part of the show. And nowadays, especially on social media, people are turning the heckler into a tool, comedians are, to go viral.
Yeah.
Like crowd work, 90% of comedians.
That Matt Rife guy does a ton of crowd. He's made a career on it.
Yeah, and 90% of the viral comedian videos you see now is usually crowd work. Somebody says something stupid, they turn it into a 10-minute skit, and they destroy the person, right? So the heckler is part of the show.
From what I was reading, and again, I wasn't I'm going to spend very limited time talking about this because I wasn't there. So who wants to hear a take from a guy that wasn't there? Much in so many ways as I don't really care about some of the abuse
I wasn't
we get
there
from people
either.
who don't
I've
actually
just heard
listen to our
everyone's
podcasts and have lots to say about them. But I would say that it sounded to me, and I was hearing from and when I say credible sources, what I mean is I know this person personally, or they're using their real name, or they come from an industry, or they work, or they're familiar with an industry where their insights are more particularly relevant. Like, that's what I'm saying from credible sources. I was seeing people anecdotally on my own social media feeds, people who I think they're plugged in. They have relatively good perspectives on things. They're not crazy, is what I'm saying. And these people, like, I saw multiple comments from people that were saying they were embarrassed at how Edmonton performed as an audience. They were embarrassed by what they saw from the crowd. They regretted that Dave Chappelle had to have that sort of an experience. Like, someone told us that he was basically counting down how much time he had left from the stage, asking aloud, what is it with this show? What is it with this crowd? So it just seems, like a weird thing. But again, I wasn't there. I haven't seen the clip, so who cares what I think?
And all this bullshit about, it's Edmonton. I mean, it's a small, like I said, it's a small percentage of fans there who had a perfect storm. They were probably a little tired, a little boozed up. Maybe some of them couldn't hear. Maybe some other people didn't agree with things. But in the end, I feel like comedy, and I know Great Outdoor Comedy Fest, I'm kind of wrong here, because that's a huge success here, and that's huge. But it's in an outdoor environment. But I just feel like when you get that many people in a low lit room, like, comedy for me is like looking someone, you can see you can look in their eyes, right? Yeah. Like, it's a lot of like being connected with the audience. And I just feel when we get that big, it's a little disconnected. I also feel like to back up the fact that hecklers suck is like, hecklers, people in general think they're so connected to celebrities and podcasters and comedians nowadays, because they indirectly kind of interact with them every day on social media. So when they go to a show like comedy and they see all these viral videos on their phone before they go of the crowd interacting with the comedian, they feel like they can do it too. So like they start talking, and there's also awkward people who maybe not have been to a comedy show or don't know how to act, especially with 10,000 people, and they get a little loud. They get a little unruly. I would equate it to like when I go to a concert, my instinct is to stand up and dance and sing along to the song at the top of my lungs. But if I'm doing that in front of someone who's sitting down or beside them, it could annoy someone, right? So, I mean, the heckler's never going to go away. I think some comedians thrive off the heckler. They're like, I hope someone says some shit tonight because I want to go in on them. Yeah. But also, if you're just rude and doing expletives and trying to ruin everyone else's good time, obviously that's not what we're here for, right?
Yeah, you've just opened up a whole can on the standing up or sitting down at concerts thing.
I feel like
that is a whole other conversation.
Yeah, and then you can get into like,
who do you side with? The sit down people or the I'm going to stand up people?
Well, I think I just said it. Like, I'm not going to sit at a concert. I'm going to get, like, I've paid $300 or whatever. I'm standing up. I'm singing along to the song. I'm sorry if you're behind me.
We had a lady screaming at us at Bruce Springsteen, screaming at us to sit down. And I was like, I
don't know, man.
Because every once in a while I'm getting recognized, I tend to limit how I respond to people publicly. But my buddy was like, lady, if you think I'm fucking sitting at a Springsteen concert, you're nuts. Yeah.
I
also
understand, though, that
their argument would be that, well, I've paid $300 and I can't see the stage.
100%. But a concert, especially, this is the thing.
It's actually like $500.
When we talk about clubs, it's a little different. Everyone's standing, or places like here in Edmonton, Union Hall, Midway, wherever you go to a show. But when you go to a stadium, I get it. You've got people sitting down, and people will say, well, pay for the pit tickets or the floor tickets. But some people can't afford that. So they're up in the 200s and they got a $40 or $80 ticket. They still want to like enjoy and immerse themselves in the concert. I think we're never going to come to an agreement on this.
There will never be an
agreement. But for me, if I go see an artist I like, the first song, I'm
obviously.
But I do avoid, I get pit or floor now, and I know it's a lot of money, and so I pick and choose the right artists I want to go to see. But it's because of so many times like that where I've gone with 2 or 3 people and we stand up.
You're Johnny Infamous. You haven't paid for a concert ticket in 20 years.
I paid for Morgan Wallen. Uh-oh. Don't let it get out on the internet. But I did wait till the last minute on StubHub. I got it for like a third of the price. But the last 3 concerts I've been to, I've been in the pit because that's the people I connect with the most. I want to sing. I want to dance. I want to clap. Yeah. I want to spin around.
The man of the people. By the way, follow up from Cordetti Motorsports, who says, no, Jespo, there was no snowmobile used when they tried to start their political party in Yellowknife. Says, says Cordetti Motorsports. This plug's for free. We appreciate your loyalty to the show. Says, I'm a winter driving school and an off-road safety school. doesn't sell snowmobiles. So there you go. I'm glad to clarify. Off-road safety school. That sounds pretty cool. Lauren says, what great guests. Others of you talking about, just your take on what you're hearing. Matriarch says, waiting for pushback against Alberta's premier. Surely those MLAs can't believe in the destruction of that party or what's happening right now. It remains to be seen. Don says the backbenchers have more power than they think. I do agree with Don. Says if they all group together, even across political lines, they can really force leaders in cabinet to submit to their will. I don't want to say submit to their will, Don, but I'll take your point for sure. He says, and Don hits the nail on the head, but it would take some real fortitude, really sticking your neck out there. And, as you can see, the whole premise of this book is that people that do stick their necks out there a lot of times pay for it with abuse and harassment and coercion and everything else. Again, Johnny's showing you the book, No I in Team, Party Loyalty in Canadian Politics. Great conversation with those two. Really appreciate the insights. Keep the comments coming as well to talk@ryanjesperson.com. People are chiming in now and standing up or sitting down at concerts. Kenny says, I agree, Johnny. That's why I pony up for nice floor seats. Says it feels more like a club show that way. Aaron says, regarding hecklers, I paid for the comedian not to listen to you. Tracy D says social media has taught everybody to believe that their opinion is necessary everywhere. Right,
it's
Tracy?
True. It's true, yeah.
Hey, if you went to the gym, did you actually go to the gym if you don't post about it? Ken K, Super Chat Ken says, I actually love shows that take away your phone. You can better enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
I'm of mixed thought on that.
Yeah, I think the phone, I don't like to have my phone taken away, but I do try and stay away from it because you do want to grab some memories of the actual show. But at the same time, I don't like people to just hold their phone and record the entire show. I'm like, what are you even doing here? Just watch it from home.
Yeah.
I do feel like hecklers, going back to hecklers, they're kind of like the kid who they're awkward, like they don't know what they're doing. Maybe they've never been to a show. They're like the kid who yells out in class and needs to be taught how to act. But I also think that I don't know, it's they need to be taught decorum, but at the same time, a comedian's kind of doing a dialogue, right? And when you're when you and me are sitting at a bar with our buddies, somebody's telling a story, we're like, hell yeah, or we chime in with our opinions, we disagree or agree, and I think that's a natural instinct, the same as it is for me to stand up and dance and sing at my favorite artist concert. So I don't think, the way people are saying, oh, it was a bunch of rednecks, I don't know that every single person there was a drunk asshole redneck.
Of course it wasn't.
I think it was just people who maybe, their instinct is to try and interact with one of their favorite artists of all time, and maybe they just effed it up.
Yeah, or they think they're funnier than the artist, or they wanted to be the one that gets
100%.
recognized by the whatever.
I will also say that a millionaire like Dave Chappelle, who has the tagline, a lot of people say he's the GOAT, he should be able to handle a few hecklers. And when people are paying $300, he should be able to rally and come back. He's done this for how long? He's used to a few people, whatever.
He's on the Mount Rushmore, but he's not the GOAT. Can we agree on that?
I don't agree at all. I think my Mount Rushmore is totally different. It's George Carlin,
Pryor,
Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, and Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, interesting.
Yeah, but that's just, that last one is a caveat for me because it's a lot of people don't agree. But for me, George Carlin will always be number one. I think he was the guy who broke into the whole, instead of just telling knock knock who's there, the traditional joke, he brought politics, he brought
social justice.
The Dave Chappelle storytelling way is literally, I think, derived, it's like a combination of Eddie Murphy and George Carlin.
Yeah. Notice nobody ever puts Jerry Seinfeld on the Rushmore. So what is it? He's too clean. He's too corporate. He's too successful.
I watch Seinfeld pretty much every day.
He's brilliant.
At some point, it's my anxiety level lower. That in The Office. And I'll say this on the show now, and you can quote me on it. I have never once laughed at the intro where Jerry's telling his jokes in the bars. I laugh at the show, which was written by Jerry Seinfeld, but let's be honest, Larry David, who's a genius at that subtle, dry humor.
Yeah.
I've never laughed at a Jerry Seinfeld stand-up. I did not like Unfrosted, so it's a weird, but you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to like pieces of an artist or a creator and then say other parts aren't that great.
100%.
You don't have to, that's the thing. These Dave Chappelle ride or diers on social media are just like, he's the GOAT. Everyone has to be quiet and sit on their hands and blah, blah, blah. I don't know about that.
Yeah. Some interesting points here from Marie, who says there's older folks or folks that aren't able to stand at concerts, and they should be able to see it too. Les says he's using a wheelchair. Says, are you going to stand up in front of me? I would also say that it's on venues. Like, number one, first of all, I don't think there's a universal rule either way. I think you have to, if there's so I was at the Oilers game last night. A gal 2 down from us, one of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life. She's a regular. We're sitting in my buddy's seats. She hadn't been there. Well, she hadn't been there for a number of games. And everybody's kind of wondering how she's doing. She's 90.
Oh my!
She was there last night, hair done beautifully, out with her family, her beautiful coat on, looking sharp as hell. I said to her, if I can even make it to 90, if I could look like you at 90 and be out at an Oilers game, unbelievable. If that lady is behind me and can't at a concert and she's 90 and she can't stand, I'm going to find a way to make it work. Obviously, we're empathetic people. I would say that folks, that have mobility issues, Les talking about chairs, number one, it's up to the venue. Our friend Brad Barco does amazing stuff. Accessibility by Design is his business. He's been on the show several times. He's a consultant with the Great Outdoors Comedy Festival. What's it called? He works with them and consults with others.
GOFC.
Yeah, to make sure that venues have accessibility options for folks. I think it's up to the venue. It's up to the people. Let empathy rule. That's my number one thing. But if you're going to the Springsteen show and you're expecting, or Blink 182 or whatever, pick your band, and you're expecting everybody to sit so you can sit, I just think honestly, respectfully, give your head a shake.
It gets really hard, but when you're talking about smaller venues or bigger venues, can they afford to have seating only, or obviously everyone has to have wheelchair and handicapped accessible places, but I don't know. It's just, you're never going to come to a consensus on this. What's my deal? Look behind me. Okay, it's not an old person, they're young, and then wait to look if they get up to sing and dance, and then I can. It's you're never going to come to a consensus other than spend the money to get into the areas where you can stand up and sing and dance. But man, I know a lot of people who can never be able to afford that and still want to go and get up and sing along to their favorite songs. So it's I don't think we'll ever come to a consensus on what to do. Agreed. But I would say if I saw old people behind me or someone who clearly couldn't stand,
because you're not a dick,
I'd probably move to the aisle and then get kicked out by security.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because your buddy would light up a joint next to you, and then it would all be settled anyway. Erica says, we went and saw Jim Jeffries, Jimmy Carr at Rogers about a year ago. Says they have a dedicated segment where they invite hecklers to say whatever they want. Says it's part of the bit, and it's absolutely hilarious, which is great. Lauren says he loves the interaction at small venues, of course. Others of you just sharing your personal stories here. I just know, says, as I get older, I can't hope to go to a concert, be able to sit and watch the show, or make sure to buy seats in the front row of the second deck.
Doesn't it seem weird to you, Ryan? We sit at home now. We can watch you can watch Bruce Springsteen live from Brazil, a huge concert, insane energy, surround sound, or put your AirPods in, put your gosh darn iMac or Apple VR glasses on, and you're there. So if you're paying money to go to a concert, I don't see why your whole thing, other than if you're elderly or you have some issues mobility wise, why you would pay $100 or more to just go and sit and do the exact same thing live. So for me, I look around at a concert. I think the majority of people at some point or one another are standing, right? It's also weird to me to get 12,000 people in a building for a comedian and say, everyone quiet and sit down.
Yeah. Dwayne says that Peter Frampton took somebody's phone at a concert and threw it away. Says he got mad at the person for constantly filming him. Interesting. I haven't heard that. A lot of you were saying, by the way, it seems like a bunch of you saw George Carlin at the Jubilee Auditorium back in the day. How cool is that? Justin says he loves Robin Williams stand-up. Underrated, I would say. The
old school stuff is it was genius.
Yeah.
It was groundbreaking.
Is Dubious talking about Dave Chappelle? Says, I heard someone yelled a racial slur at him. Says, I don't blame him for ending the show. I don't know if that was a comment based on something. I haven't heard that.
I've talked to about 20 different people who were there, and I've heard conflicting. Here's the other thing. You get a different kind of experience no matter where you were. Some people were the people near us and us couldn't hear. Then other people, like the person we know works in this building who was closer to the stage, so close he didn't need the speakers. He said he could hear Dave talking. He said there was some stuff when he started bringing up, trans stuff and some of the punching down, people were upset. There were other people in other sections who said there were older people who were just taking off their suit jackets and rolling up their sleeves because it was 28 degrees in there. So I think what happened was there was a bunch of pockets of irritable people, and it started popping off, right?
Yeah, Jill has a great point too. Says people would probably be a little less angry if tickets weren't so expensive.
Agreed.
She's totally right. She says she paid $70 bucks. She said I paid $70 for
crazy.
share at Rogers Place a month before lockdown. So call it what, late 2019, early 2020. Says what happened to ticket prices? Says Jill, I'm never going to a show again. I feel like $70 to me. That always felt, although, yeah, I grew up in the era of 49 cent a liter gas, but like $70 seems normal to me for a concert ticket.
Plus
concert
tax.
tickets now for, I mean, again, everything I say, I sound older, and it's probably because I am getting older and older. But like, it seems now that it's normal for a concert ticket to be $150.
Yes.
People don't bat an eye if it's $250, and the big names that come in. Like I know one of you earlier had said the most you'd ever paid for a ticket was $275. I mean, a reference the Springsteen show. I mean, it's like when you talk about the like iconic artists that are coming in, especially if it's their last tour or they're telling everybody it's their last tour, like Motley Crue's been doing for 20 years.
Sure.
It's like $350. People are paying $400 for tickets. I just think it's absolutely insane.
It is insane. So I would think about here with Rogers Place, and again, the venue has nothing. Like I'm pretty sure promoters and artists kind of set the ticket prices. Right, but along with the venue, but like it's not specifically Rogers Place. But if you go for like floor to pit or standing on the floor, it's usually after tax. It's always $350, $400 for a well-known big artist, right?
Yeah.
You go back to the first line of section where you sit 100s. You're going to pay $150 to $200 after tax. You go up to the 200s. Yeah, there's always tickets there that are still around $75 to $90 plus tax or whatever, but they're way up in the back. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think people who love artists but can't afford them still go to concerts and get stuck up there, and they should be allowed to dance and stand up. Do we need sections, Ryan, where people can dance? Like this one's dancing, the next one's sitting.
STFU section.
Or the ones at the very back. The nosebleeds are sitting only from those 5 rows down. But
now you're discriminating.
Exactly.
You're a classist.
You're never going to figure it out.
You're a classist.
Never going to figure it out.
Dubious wonders if the bagged phones. So if you guys aren't familiar with this, my only experience with this was when John Mulaney was at Rogers Place. Wonderful comedian. But again,
how did that work with the big crowd?
So it's again 10,000 people. It's just different. I mean, he's funny, he's great, and he was right off his rehab stint, so he was talking a lot about his his struggle with blow and everything else.
Wild stories.
So it was like a fascinating show, and it was kind of his first tour right out of rehab, so that made it particularly interesting. But the phone, number one, I agree. I don't think comedy's meant for venues of 10,000. And number two, just having phones in bags. I can get where people say they love it. Like Super Chat Ken said. I mean, I was telling you, when we get into the backcountry, me and my boys who hike 100K 7 days wherever we are, no reception, phones are in watertight rafting bags in the bottom of our backpacks. We don't touch our phones for a week, and it's like once you get past, it's a lot like heroin.
I was just going to say, how's that first day?
It's like heroin. I've heard.
You're throwing up.
But once you get through the first 24 hours, then you're through the wood, and then you're good, and it's wonderful, and it's freeing.
Hard.
So I can understand, but it's also like. And you talk about the addiction. I mean, I think it's interesting when you said it 10 minutes ago that, you'd compare tech addiction, phone connection, similar to nicotine or to booze.
For sure.
I mean, people I don't know about you, but, have you ever caught yourself with, you check, I go through the big ones. I'll check like Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, I don't check TikTok actually. Check my text, check my email. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, I check Instagram again. I'm like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
What are you doing? It's like a twitch. It's like a thing that's subconscious, and I do think that's problematic. The Mulaney show is interesting because all the phones were in the bags. And I found myself, because I'm a little bit, I don't know if maybe I'm undiagnosed ADHD or I don't know. But I do know that, like, when I'm working, I'll be like, oh, I got to pay that bill, right? Oh, I got to transfer that money, or oh, I got to follow up on this, or oh, I got to send. And I'm the person that quickly, bang, bang, 10 seconds here, bang, bang, 10 seconds there. And when you have that taken away from you, let alone wanting to shoot photos or video, which I understand why artists and performers don't want that. I get that part of it. It's a bit of an interesting experience.
It's like someone cut your arm off.
Well, the logistics of it all too. Like Goose is in here, and I'm going to read this, Goose, although it pains me to do so because, as you know, for 7 years, Johnny was the official DJ of the Edmonton Oilers. I was the official in-game host, and we have lots of friends still at Rogers Place at the venue, but I will read this. Goose says, I heard that Dave Chappelle's head of security said Rogers Place was the worst staff they've ever encountered. Pains me to read it. For allowing phones and devices through security if they've ever seen that before. I did hear that there were like crippling lineups for people to get in. Logistically, getting everybody to put their phones in bags, you got to lock the bags, this, that, and the other. I mean, it is.
It's hard.
I mean, it's a move. It's
even,
a move for an artist to do that.
I don't understand it though, because there's meta glasses, there's ways to get cameras in, and there's people like, I'm sure there's ways to get around the phone and bag policy if you say something like, I don't know, if you have an emergency, like maybe you have a medical condition, or
you got to go to the designated area and they'll unlock your phone and then you can check your phone.
It's also weird to me that like you're putting it in a bag, like somebody could just rip it open, right? It's like I pictured like, how are you going to do this? It happened to be like a metal bag or something, right? But yeah, we were talking about the bags yesterday. You could go into a bathroom, rip them open, or cut them open.
No, you can't.
No,
they're straight up like they're.
Yeah, I couldn't take scissors and cut this bag open.
Well, I mean, maybe you could take scissors. Maybe some sort of weird alarm would go off. I don't know. I didn't consider. Are you smuggling scissors into the arena?
No, I'm just saying, like it's crazy to me to try and get 12,000 people to hand over their devices, right? But I get what it is comedians go on tour, they test out material, then they package it all and put it into a product where they make money on Netflix or whatever. So I get why they want to hide things, but
yeah. Ken K may have the record unless somebody beats him for highest ticket price. I mean, I guess if folks have been to the Super Bowl or Masters Sunday or something, maybe you'll top this. Paid $1,200 US a seat to see Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden.
Well,
wow.
I think that's a venue tied into that. That is an iconic venue.
Oh, yeah, but he had a residency.
Billy Joel in?
How many
That's
shows
crazy.
did he do?
That would be a wild show.
How many? Here, cover me, Johnny. How many shows did Billy Joel do at Madison Square Garden? A historic residency, 150 shows.
That's crazy.
At MSG, concluding his historic monthly residency with the final concert last summer, July 25th, 2024. Most lifetime performances at the venue. Can you imagine 150 shows at MSG and you still have people paying $1,200 a seat US to go see him?
That's the venue to be at, and to get a residency there. Like there's 3 places. It's probably like MSG, Vegas residencies, and now it's the Sphere in Vegas. Those are probably the
Lauren
top
says
3.
his daughter paid $1,200 Canadian for VIP tickets at the Sphere in Vegas in May to see No Doubt. Her favorite band.
The Sphere, like that's just a whole other, like when we're talking about how venues add to ticket price and experience, MSG is so up there, places in Vegas, I'll go over the top, but the Sphere now, oh my God. Like that's a place where I'd be like, everyone sit down actually, because you're immersed. It's all around you. It's insane.
Yeah. Oh man.
Billy
Joel is not going to do anything to me more impressive than snagging Christy Brinkley.
But I can see.
Sure, 150 shows at MSG, sure. But how did that guy get Christy Brinkley?
I'm trying to steer away from this. I don't want to wade into it. But
no, I guarantee if you want to start talking about we'll talk Lyle Lovett, Julia Roberts. We'll talk Billy Joel and Christy Brinkley. Johnny doesn't want to go in on this because he thinks we're going to get in trouble. Johnny, this is real talk. Give the people what they want.
Go ahead.
Who is the most unlikely celebrity romance of all time?
I don't know.
It's got to be. Oh, look at you. The man with all the opinions. How about this from M. Aitken says, I have the ticket stubs to every show I've seen in the last 20 years. I lament the fact that we don't get ticket stubs anymore. I had a run through late high school into like my mid-university years where I would work very hard at every concert I was at to get the set list, either from the sound booth or from on stage if I was lucky enough to be close. And on the back of my bedroom door, I had probably 10. I had one from the Tragically Hip. I had one from the Watchmen. I had one from the Smalls with Corb Lund. Several set lists with the ticket stubs stapled to them. And I just a treasured. Now it's just all digital. I don't know, man. I miss the old school tickets. I don't miss having to line up at like the Bay at the Ticketmaster booths hours before tickets went on sale. I mean, it was obviously trying to get through on the phone lines. Everybody remembers what that was like back in the day. But yeah, I miss old school ticket stubs. Are you a collector guy? Did you collect stuff like that?
Yeah, I still have I tried to go VIP to a lot of artists I love, and I still have a drawer full of them. But you're right. I just thought now I was like, yeah, I think you can still get physical tickets mailed to you, but nobody does it. And it's all a QR code now. So what do you got? You got screenshots of QR codes is what you got.
Yeah. Oh man, a good example. I told you people want to talk about this. Unlikely celebrity relationships. Yes, Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie. Although Billy Bob is such a stud. Remember when everyone thought that Billy Bob was the biggest asshole for the way that he treated Jean Gomeshi, and then everyone had revelations about Jean Gomeshi, and then Billy Bob Thornton totally redeemed himself. You guys remember that? What about this? Many of you are Metamodern says, holy shit, that dude with Christina Hendricks. George Bianchi. Look at this. This is People Magazine. Christina Hendricks' husband, all about George Bianchi. Is that the guy behind the Bianchi suit empire? It's got to be. Is he the fashion designer? Oh, wow. Fascinating stuff. If you're ever looking for beautiful Bianchi suit jackets, make sure you pick them up at the Helm. They have them there. Yeah, okay. So Christina Hendricks, why are you not showing my screen? She's like one of the best actors.
I did.
Oh,
do
you
want
did?
to
I didn't
longer?
know. No, I mean, well, yeah, I could. Sorry. I do want to see her longer. No, what?
Trying to stay
What?
out of this conversation.
Yeah, you are.
Beauty is in the eye of the
You
beholder,
are.
real talkers.
Erica says, well, look at, it says, Alberta Girl says, Jespo, all the couples you're talking about, all divorced. Fair enough. She also says, what about Bill Belichick's girlfriend? That one.
Not going to touch it.
You're not going to touch it? I don't think she touches it either. What? Send us your thoughts to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Have you guys ever seen Johnny so nervous about a conversation in the history of this show? Yeah. I don't think so. Yeah. He's probably going to cut all this out of the podcast.
I've said enough things that Dave Chappelle ride or diers probably disagree with today. The freedom speech lovers who don't like freedom of speech when it's a heckler.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah. Well, who needs consistency these days
anyway,
John?
flip-flop.
Who needs consistency? Yeah. We have a tradition as we wrap up every week. I'm not going there quite yet. But before we get to our flamethrower, I want to put something on your radar, guys. I know that this is a generous audience, and I know that you care about community, and that's why I'm putting UCAN Youth Services in front of you this holiday season. Check them out online at ucan.ca. We talk about them every episode. You know we have a ton of respect for what they're doing, helping young people out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence. Here's where you can step up and stuff a stocking. Give the gift of confidence this Christmas for a young adult entering the workforce. It's oftentimes the little things that will make a big difference. A bus pass, warm socks, a coffee card, maybe one of those little charging units that can charge their phone. Maybe when they're riding to work or on their way home, one of those power banks. You can stuff a full stocking for $100. Let's make sure we stuff all the stockings at ucan.ca. You can also pick and choose specific items. Whatever you can afford this holiday season, it goes to a wonderful cause, and that is UCAN Youth Services. You can make that donation today. Tax deductible, by the way, at ucan.ca. And next week, next Thursday, will be another edition of Alberta Wins, presented by our friends at Play Alberta. These are the stories celebrating Albertans making an impact in their own communities, just like yesterday's episode. Hey, shout out to the Brickhouse Smokehouse, sending over 700 care packages to teachers across the region. We want to hear your Alberta win. To talk@ryanjesperson.com. With casino winners every hour, jackpots worth millions in revenue that stays right here in the province of Alberta. There's never been a better time to download the Play Alberta app or to visit playalberta.ca. Right now, Real Talkers can score a $50 casino bonus with a minimum $50 deposit using the promo code Ryan50. All one word, Ryan50, for a $50 casino bonus at playalberta.ca or on the app. It's only available to those 18 years of age or older. It's how old you got to be to play. And if you are gambling, please make sure you use your game sense. Well, each and every week, we take a look at the hottest emails we've received, the hottest takes. Sometimes they're YouTube comments as well. Thanks to everybody that's subscribed over the past month. Welcome to our new subscribers. This is the fruit of your labor. These are the hottest takes from Real Talkers over the past 5 episodes. It's the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. How about this one from Trent, who says, Jespo, Alberta separatists have it completely backward. Walking away from Canada is not the win. They should be backing Quebec separatists instead. Alberta leaving creates a dozen new headaches, while Quebec leaving fixes almost all of them. Suddenly, Alberta gets a bigger slice of a richer pie. The professional complainers get the irrelevance they've always craved, and the rest of Canada finally stops pretending that equalization is anything but a decades-long shakedown. Trent says, boot Quebec, keep the country, and thank me later. I think he's going to put that on a t-shirt. What about this one from Robert, who says, Jespo, I turned into your show this week Tuned in to hear Minister Adriana LaGrange expecting to be lied to, and I wasn't disappointed, unfortunately. Shady as hell. This is the language of people who are doing bad things. They know they're doing bad things, but they're determined not to admit it. That from Robert. You can check out that interview on our podcast or, of course, on our YouTube channel. This one from Erin says, in grade 11, I went on an Alberta-Quebec exchange, and the student from Quebec came to our place for a semester, and I went out there. It was in Chicoutimi. Beautiful country, says. Sometimes whales would be traveling down the Saguenay. What? She says this was in 1995 during Quebec's referendum on separation, and there were literally cars painted with the fleur-de-lis. There were 2 high schools with 3,500 kids in them, massive schools, and the entire main floor was lockers, a radio station, cafeteria. Blew my mind, says Erin, coming from small-town northern Alberta where our graduating class of 78 was the largest they'd ever seen. The one school was for those who had prospects. The others, the ones that maybe they weren't so sure they would succeed. Now, that's a lot of words to say, says Erin. Earmuffs, kids. Fuck Quebec, says Erin. They had the least egregious policies on immigrants, less money, this, that, and the other, but their hope was to have more French speakers, so they only had them pay limited amounts. They're trying to limit religiosity right now, and what we're seeing right now, the note that people should keep in mind is that almost all towns are making their steeple of the church the highest thing going. So it's not congruous with what we're seeing today. Erin says, I have so much more to gripe about, but I wanted to provide this first-hand report. She says this really is bananas. We were talking about Quebec banning public prayer. Sabrina Vetti and I got into that earlier. This one from Kimm on the lack of accountability for politics. Johnny, I had to clear my throat here. We're getting all kinds of fired
what's
up.
happening?
What's happening here? I think that's a first for the Flamethrower. Kimm says, I'm absolutely sick and tired of reporters who aren't defending the integrity of themselves or the companies and the outlets they represent and the people who present information by letting the President of the United States, that jackass Donald Trump, get away with his unprofessional, degrading, and disgusting insults and remarks. The absolute verbal abuse from the President of the United States toward the press, particularly women, sickens me. And other journalists are doing absolutely nothing to hold him accountable or defend their fellow professionals. Quiet Piggy? Quote, are you a stupid person? Quote, she's an ugly person inside and out? These are vile things to say to anybody, but they're coming out of the president's mouth on live TV. Kimm says our kids see this shit and it's been going on way too long. It's being normalized. And she says I'm losing respect daily for the press and not believing what I see on the news.
Oh, man.
I'm really struggling through this one.
You want me to finish? Hand me the next one.
Somebody get me
Hand me the next email.
You want to read the next one? Somebody give me a lozenge. She says, we all know what happened with Bruce McAllister. Closer to Alberta, the spanking remark. The Premier called it an offside comment. He needs to do better, but it was quietly kicked under the rug. She says, this shit needs to stop, says Kimm. Bad behavior breeds bad behavior. It makes it hard to hold anybody accountable. She says, I hope our youth sees this for what it is and uses it as a tool to do better in the future. Kimm says, I hope the rest of your week is kick-ass, Real Talkers. Congrats to the show on 5 years and keep up the great work. Kimm, we promise we will. The Flamethrower is proudly presented by the DQs in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, Baseline Road when you visit them to pick up a signature stack burger. That Flamethrower, and I recommend a Score Blizzard. You let them know that Real Talk sent you. Coming up next episode, Supriya Devetti, Sharon Carr are going to go toe-to-toe. There's something big they disagree on. And then the next episode, Tuesday, December 9th, Premier Daniel Smith joins me in studio. Send your questions to the show today to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Make it a great weekend, everybody. One love.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks. General manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Human resources Lena Shepard. Website design Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton.